Today I'm installing the MT200 hydraulic disc brake in the front of the Lectric XP 3.0. This is the BL MT200 specifically, and it includes the brake lever with a pre-bled hydraulic line and the caliper. Now I've been running the Shimano M375 in the front for over 80 miles now. I'm going to remove the full cable, lever, caliper combination, and then I'm going to take just the caliper and move it to the back. So then I'll be running with upgraded brakes on both sides. Today I'm not going to have time to put this mechanical Shimano caliper in the rear. I'm just going to focus on getting the hydraulic on. So I'm going to start by removing the old system. I think I have to remove this end cap to be able to remove the stock grips. There we go. This should spin right off. So I'm going to try some simple green solution to try to get the grip to slip a little bit. Okay. Now to remove the lever, it's a 5mm Allen bolt right here. Now by switching to this hydraulic system, I am going to lose the cutoff switch to the front brake, but I still have the cutoff switch in the rear brake. So in an emergency stop situation, as long as I at least touch the rear brake a little bit, the motor will cut out. I'm going to have to undo this cable wrap to be able to get the caliper and the cable off. This connector here is the brake cutoff switch. There we go. So I got that out, but now we still got to get the cable out of this loom. Pop the cable out of these hooks here that hold it in place, which is going to remove the caliper right here. 5mm bolts. Okay, that wasn't too bad. Now let's look at the length of this stock cable versus the hydraulic line. Nearly identical. That's perfect. Should be an easy install. And when you order these hydraulic lines, you do have to make sure you order the right part number. If you're going to do the front, see here it's 1000mm for the front, 1700mm to the rear, because there's much more length to get to the rear. Let's do everything in reverse. Leave everything nice and loose for now. Snap the line in here. Let's get the caliper close to position. So now to install the caliper, you have to remove this plastic spacer here and be very careful. Once you pull the spacer out, you don't want to press the lever because then you'll have to push the pistons back. So right there. And just like with the mechanical Shimano upgrade, it looks like the spacer works perfectly. Okay, so it does come with new bolts. I'm going to go ahead and use the new bolts with fresh Loctite. You can get them started by hand, but then because the bolts come with Loctite, you get to a point where you have to use your tool to tighten them the rest of the way in. So you want to leave these bolts loose because we're going to perform a centering procedure for the caliper. Installing and centering hydraulic brakes should be much easier because both pistons move. So when I tighten down the lever, the caliper auto centers. I'm going to hold the lever and then tighten the bolts the rest of the way. Wiggle, wiggle. Okay, so let's see. Pump it a few times to allow it to center. Then hold it. So you're holding it. Tighten the two bolts the rest of the way down, a little bit at a time. Okay, now we're going to go a harder torque. They should be magically centered. Let's see if it's true. Tiny bit of rubbing. There is still some rubbing of the spokes against the caliper. Very light rubbing. I'm going to have to shift it far enough away that there's no rubbing against the spokes. What I'm thinking I could do is actually add a washer behind each of these disc mounting bolts. So the disc is spaced a tiny bit away from the hub. And one little washer ought to do it. So I'm going to remove the front wheel to make this process easier. Remove the front wheel, remove the rotor, put the spacers in, then put the wheel back in. To remove the front wheel, you got to take these plastic caps off. And it appears to be a 15mm nut. Just loosen the nuts and pop the wheel out. Now that the wheel is off, I'm going to remove the bolts that hold the disc. And I believe it's a T25, a Torx 25 bolt head. With all the bolts loose, you can remove the disc. And I'm going to install a spacer where each bolt head goes. I bought this machine screw kit a while ago. And I'm going to take 1/4-inch flat washers from it and trim them to use as spacers. I'm going to mark them and then trim them with a Dremel tool. Approximately, if I cut here and here, and this doesn't have to be very accurate, just you got to be able to take enough material off that the bolts will go through the hole. There's one. Now cutting with the Dremel tool does leave a little bit of a rough edge where I made the cut, so I'm going to grind it down a little bit so that I can make sure that the spacer sits flush against the hub. And I'm going to do this for all 6 spacers. So I've cut and sanded all my spacers. Now I'm going to wipe the surface clean, make sure there's no dirt particles that can affect the seating of the spacers. Got my spacers here. Let's position them to allow the bolts to go through. The idea is just to have them add some even space all the way around the rotor. Start the bolts a little bit by hand. Try not to touch the disc surface, the braking surface with your oily fingers. I'm going to get these a little bit closer to snug. Then I'm going to push in the spacers so they're as close to the hub as possible. And you want to go in a crisscross pattern as you start tightening down the bolts. Let's see how this spacer MacGyvering works. Make sure that this washer, this little tab on the washer here, has to go into this notch. There we go. Same thing on the other side. The tab on this washer needs to go into that hole. Let's tighten down the nuts and then I'll try to align the rotor, see if it doesn't hit the spokes anymore with those spacers. I shouldn't have tightened down this caliper too much. So make sure this caliper is loose before you remount the wheel. I can already tell there's hope. I don't hear the piston hitting, but let's see what happens when we tighten everything down. To center a hydraulic caliper, put brake pressure on the lever and hold it as you tighten down the mounting bolts, and do a little bit at a time on each side. Don't crank down one all the way. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. No more hitting of the piston against the spokes. It's centered, 0 rubbing, strong braking action. I love how hydraulic brakes feel. So now the question is, how is it going to perform on the road? We're all waiting for Lectric to allow us to order our hydraulic upgrade kit for both front and back at no cost. That email should be coming from Lectric in a month or so. But in the meantime, I still got to ride my bike. I still got to commute. So I went ahead and upgraded to the hydraulic system I had already ordered and purchased. To finish up the hydraulic system installation, I'm going to get the grip back on and tidy up the wiring and the hydraulic line. Getting some water on here to help it slip on. Get the end cap back on with the lettering straight. Alright. Now this connector was a motor cutoff switch. This MT200 Shimano hydraulic caliper is not for e-bikes, so I'm going to lose the ability to cut off the motor with this lever, but this lever still has it. So in an emergency stop situation, as long as I at least tap the rear brake a little bit, the motor will still cut out. But I'm going to tape off this cap so it doesn't get full of water and start corroding. Use a little bit of electrical tape over that. Ran out of black electrical tape, so a red will have to do. That should be more than enough. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap the hydraulic line along with all these wires going down to the bottom. So make sure you include the hydraulic line in the new wrap. Now this fat connector stays out of the wrap in this section. So just wrap all the other lines until you get past this large connector. There we go. That's looking nice and neat. And up here, again, include the hydraulic line. Okay, that seems to work pretty well. So there you have it. Nice new hydraulic brake. Test it out on the road in a bit. The wrap is all back to pretty close to the original configuration. Grip is back on. Rotate it a little bit. Good.